Good evening, Professor Parth and classmates. For this case study for risk assessment, I'm working with my colleagues Rosalie Adriatico, Johanna Laban, myself, Jaisal, and Sandra Tabilisima. For risk to personal security and loss of physical property, we have identified three main categories, which includes first, safety, terror attacks, theft, and robbery, as well as vandalism. Second will be privacy, which includes identity theft and voyeurism. And lastly would be cybersecurity, which has data theft and credit card fraud. Through the years, the hotel industry has seen several incidents. First, in 2003, in Jakarta, Indonesia, there was a car bombing outside the JW Marriott Hotel that killed 12 and injured 150. In 2008, in Iligan, Philippines, there were two budget hotels that were bombed and wounded 3 individuals. 2009, again in Jakarta, Indonesia, there was a Ritz-Carlton hotel that was bombed and killed 7. 2017, in Las Vegas, Nevada, there was a mass shooting in Mandalay Bay Resorts Casino that killed 58 and injured hundreds. In 2020, Marriott suffered a data breach and lost 5.2 million guest records. 2021, there was a hotel vandalism in Sioux Lookout, Ontario. There was a breaking of 3 hotel windows. And lastly, the latest in July 23, there was a man robbed inside one of Oakville hotels. And for this case study, our group had decided to research on the Resorts World Manila. There was a lone man that attacked the casino. And these are 3 clippings of the news that we got. And we'll be showing you a short video of the gist of the situation.
Tonight, police say this is the man who stormed the Manila casino, armed with an assault rifle and a bottle of gasoline. The crowds ran in panic when they heard the gunshots. Police and military rushed in. Survivors said they saw several attackers with guns. But tonight, police say there was only one, firing in the air and at TV screens, stealing $2 million in poker chips, setting tables on fire. The gunman later found dead in a hotel room. Police said it was suicide. Tonight, ISIS is claiming responsibility. The jihadist group already active in the Philippines, clashing with the military in the south. But police say there is no evidence this gunman was a terrorist. He didn't fire at anyone or blow anything up, the police chief said. For hours, they also said no one had died, yet dozens were missing. This worried father looking for his daughter. By morning, the grim reality, dozens dead from smoke inhalation, many of them women who'd been hiding in a bathroom. Tonight, as families grieve, police are looking for answers. Who is this man and why did he attack? Kelly Kobiella, NBC News.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button.
Tonight, police say...
For further details, my colleague Sandra will be discussing.
Thank you, Jaisal. Shortly after midnight of June 2, 2017, a gunman invaded Resorts World Manila in the Philippines during an attempted robbery. Next slide, please. This unfortunate incident is said to end up in at least 50 people being injured and at least 37 lives being taken. Next slide, please. Question of many, who is the lone attacker? The gunman, identified as Jesse Javier Carlos, was reportedly a former tax professional who lost his job for making false statements and failing to disclose his assets. He is banned from all casinos at his family's request. And according to Philippine National Police, or PNP, this might be one of his motivations in this attack. Next slide, please. Here's a quick timeline of what happened at Resorts World Manila back in 2017. The suspect arrived at the hotel at 12:07 a.m. via taxi. A single security guard pursued him after he went past a metal detector, but the lady guard fled after he pulled his assault gun. He also used gasoline to set gambling tables and slot machines on fire. There were no confirmed reports of gunshot wounds, according to the PNP, but at least 50 people were hurt while attempting to flee. Next slide, please. At 12:10 a.m., PNP received a report about attack at Resorts World Manila and deployed their team. According to the CCTV footage of the casino, the gunman went to the cashier room to steal high-denomination gaming chips worth $2.3 million. ISIS, a terror group, had claimed responsibility for the attack, but officials have repeatedly denied it was terror-related. As you can see in the photo, Resorts World employees help in the evacuation of visitors and staff members. At this time, injuries were reported due to stampede. Next slide, please. Hotel security team and police exchanged fires with the suspect, and he was reportedly hurt. According to Resorts World COO Stephen Riley, the gunman fled the casino and went to a room in Maxim's Hotel, an adjoining hotel, and left his backpack filled with gambling chips. The manhunt was finally concluded after locating his body. He committed suicide in room 510 where he was wrapped in a thick blanket before setting the room on fire and shooting himself. The Ninoy Aquino International Airport, which is just across Resorts World Manila, briefly closed all 4 of its terminal's major gates. Next slide, please. How did Resorts World Manila handle the situation? As reported in the investigation, there were loopholes in how Resorts World Manila handled it. The company had failed to carry out measures that should have been implemented by all facilities, including a fire plan, disaster plan, and a security plan for incidents, particularly those involving an active shooter. First, Resorts World Manila security officers had failed to confront the lone gunman. Resorts World Manila, as they claimed, immediately alerted the police after the first gunshot. They also evacuated around 12,154 visitors and employees. And they also announced lockdown and deferred all updates to PNP about the operation. I'm passing the mic to my colleague Joanna for more in-depth details on risk assessment.
Thank you, Sandra. How should the situation have been handled by the organization? Employees and management should properly coordinate with the authorities in order to avoid a serious situation. Consider how you might react in a robbery and discuss the situation with your coworkers and employer. Common sense, caution, and adherence to established policies and procedure and can reduce the amount of money stolen and minimize the chance for injury and loss of life. It took about 4 minutes for the gunman to get into the elevator with ammunition vest, which is already concerning. In this case, management should call the authorities immediately. When the gunman is in the elevator, the CCTV of security personnel operator should remain vigilant. Report the incident proactively and immediately notify other guards and call the police immediately. During the gunman sent part to gaming tables, all employees started evacuating. However, some employees stay at their location out of fear of the gunman. The management should have immediately communicated with the employees and given proper information about where the emergency exits were. Rather than stay and cause them suffocate to death. Reducing the risk. The potential for violence in the workplace can be reduced through a combination of physical and procedural control measures, which include the following. Careful work area designed to preserve sight lines, use of security devices, general and personal, employee education and training, employee scheduling and procedure for working alone. Next slide, please. These are the major department roles when talking about risk management. I pass the mic to my colleague, Jaisel, to continue discussion.
Thank you, Joanna. Regardless of the scope of everyone's responsibility, we believe that every individual plays an important role in working together with other departments to create a safe and secure environment, both for the guests and the staffs. We will be sharing you a caricature and a display of individual responsibilities of each department. which starts with the senior management. They have to assign a person or team to plan and organize security operations. And for non-security operations, which includes housekeeping, F&B, and the front desk, they have to do regular checks on employees' knowledge of crisis management and emergency procedures. They have to put up relevant posters for employees' common areas, learn to spot common telltale signs of terrorist activity, and stay alert to suspicious items and behavior when cleaning rooms. For security personnel, they have to ensure that there are enough people on duty or on call, have a location to secure, detain, and question suspicious individuals, and brief all third parties on hotel evacuation and crisis management plans. And lastly, for hotel administration, which includes HR, IT, and engineering department, they can consider incorporating security training into the employee orientation program, ensure employee with access to sensitive data, practice good cyber hygiene and data protection habits, and lastly, provide key employees with two-way communication devices. Next page. Rosalie will be discussing the prevention strategies.
Thank you, Jaisal. Talking about the prevention strategies of Resorts World Manila to minimize the risks to their operations. The horrific attack called attention to the safety of the Philippine travelers. The joint venture Genting Group's Hong Kong arm, the Travelers International Hotel Group, and Alliance Global Group hire one of the world's leading private security and protection consultants to embark on a complete inspection of their protocols for safety and security. They have taken their advice and suggestions and immediately put them into operation. Next slide, please. While Resorts World Manila has been temporarily closed, they took a quick move to avoid similar attack from happening by improving the containment style defense system. And the security unit has been replaced with the help of an overseas group consultants. Next slide, please. After all the investigation and reviews of CCTV footage, the Philippine National Police, PNP, confirmed some of the breaches they committed, where Resorts World negligence in increasing guards on duty on the graveyard shift, and the security personnel's lack of emergency or crisis response training. Resorts World Manila's license has been suspended for 4 weeks by the regulator of the Philippine gaming industry, effective immediately. Next slide, please. The Philippine police and families of 3 of the victims intended to file criminal charges as the case is strong, but Resorts World stated proposals for settlement, which the bereaved families soon accepted. The company paid hospital fees and other treatment costs for the people that were injured in Friday's casino attack, paid the education of victims' children, and compensated 1 million pesos or $20,000 for each family. Here's my colleague Jaisal again to discuss the next slide.
Thank you, Rosalie. So our group has conducted our SWOT analysis concerning the topic identified and for the prevention. And among the strengths for this case of Resorts World Manila, it is an established hotel and gaming brand in Asia with enough capacity to fund for security and physical control improvements. The hotel is also located in a busy area, it is nearby the airport. Thus, it has access to emergency services and it is readily available. Some of the weaknesses that we saw are that security personnel was ill-trained to handle armed guests, and the entrance to the metal detector gate can be bypassed by guests. Third, there was poor security communication protocol when alarm was raised. Fourth, insufficient number of security personnel in high-risk environment like the casino. And lastly, its escape routes should be visible and accessible to all guests in case of emergency. For opportunities, we have highlighted training for security personnel to be improved, provision of restraining devices like taser guns to security personnel to subdue criminal elements, review their firearm policy and ensure guests acknowledge before visiting casinos. Fourth is to better public address system for mass communication to all guests during emergency. And lastly, an opportunity to conduct terror and active shooter drills with staff on regular basis. For the threats, we have considered security guards are contracted from an agency. Thus, there can be a lot of personal changes and training might not be consistent. Second, police support may be limited due to being understaffed and overwhelmed with petty crimes in the city. And lastly, gun laws in the city are rarely enforced, and individuals can have access to illegally owning one. Moving forward for the conclusion, for this topic, we have identified the consequences of risk when they are not managed properly. First is that, like terrorist attacks, they can be injuries and deaths among employees and guests. There will be a drop in occupancy and falling revenue for the establishment. And definitely, there will be a damage in the image and hotel reputation. And like in Resorts World Manila, there was a disruption in business operations and it caused financial losses for the company. And lastly, we have identified why hotels actually make great and attractive targets for this risk. It's because there are a lot of people that are going in and out of the facility. There is a constant traffic of people. Second, the attacks involving tourists can draw global and international media attention. Tourism can also be directly impacted with these threats, and hotels have a valuable personal and financial data, thus they are a great threat. And lastly, hotels have public access that make it easier to have access to floor plans. So this will be all for our case study. Thank you for listening. This is our group and our references for this case study. Thank you very much and have a good day.